Welcome to Module 2, Lesson 4. Now that we've hit a few examples of using the Create and Configure tabs in creating a GPT, now we're going to get into some really powerful stuff. We're going to start talking about the actions capabilities within creating a custom GPT. And if you remember from one of the previous lessons, actions is when we start to leverage APIs in our custom GPT. And this becomes really powerful stuff. Now, before we jump into actually creating this GPT, let's actually talk about what is an API, what's its purpose, how do you use it? And if you're already a developer and you know this, you can probably skip this part. But it's really critical you understand what an API is before we start using them. So APIs stand for Application Programming Interface. And it allows you to do a few things. It allows you to access and retrieve data from other systems or applications. It allows you to perform specific tasks through the API. You can reduce a lot of unnecessary complexity for developers. It allows you to extend functionality of your solution that you're building. And it allows you to create some added security as well. But let's start with a simple metaphor to kind of get the idea of what an API even is. So let's say when you go to a restaurant, you don't go into a restaurant and then go back in the kitchen and start to fix your own drink or prepare your own food. Instead, you interact with a waiter. And a waiter is like an API. You interact with your waiter to order your food, your drinks, to ask questions about the menu, to pay your bill, to do all these different types of things. The waiter is effectively the interface between you and all the services a restaurant offers. They're shielding you from all the complicated things that take place in the back of the house to actually run the restaurant. And this makes for a better user experience for your users. So that's why a lot of people use APIs. So for example, I may not know how to prepare the perfect filet mignon, but I can just ask my waiter and order one through them. And within a few minutes, I have my filet mignon. So APIs are very similar in that regard. So what are a couple like actual realistic applications of APIs and not these metaphorical ones? So one you probably have seen before when you're in an application and you're able to order an Uber through a different app. So Uber has an API that can request a car or show where a car is. Another one is weather. You may see in other applications where you can actually use a weather API. And what's interesting is Apple's weather app actually uses the Weather Channel's API. They're not out there figuring out all these temperatures and forecasts and all these things because it's not their core skill set, but it's a nice added feature. So they leverage an API that already has all the weather data to create their weather app. Maps is another very common one. GPS that you'll probably see a lot of the times with location type services in other applications. Could you imagine if every app had to actually build that out? I mean, it would take forever. There's so much unnecessary complexity there. Somebody's already solved it. Use that. And that's what APIs really do. It allows you to reduce a lot of the complexity. You can get data from other systems, and it makes your solutions really powerful. It makes for a great user experience. And guess what? You can do that in your custom GPTs. So are you picking up on why this is so powerful? Not only can you build custom GPTs with the power of ChatGPT, with the power of adding your own knowledge base, with the power of adding your own custom instructions, you also have the ability to connect to APIs. Like, these are going to start to be extremely powerful tools in the future, and you're going to be on the ground floor learning these ahead of everybody else. So now let's jump into our actual example. As always, let's jump over to the Explore tab to start building our GPT. We'll go to Create a GPT. And for this example, we're going to use a public API because it's easy to access. You don't need authentication or an API key, so it makes for a good example. But one of the issues I found with ChatGPT is you can't get a lot of accurate cryptocurrency prices. So if we were to ask ChatGPT, what is the price of Bitcoin? It gives me this random answer of the current price of Bitcoin can vary significantly across different exchanges and can fluctuate rapidly. As of the last update, I cannot provide a real-time market data. So kind of a gap with ChatGPT here. So what we're going to do is we're going to leverage a public API called Gecko that'll actually help us retrieve cryptocurrency prices in real time. So let's go back to our builder, and we're going to work in the configure tab. And we're going to call this one cryptocurrency quoter. And for the description, we're going to say this GPT gets the price of cryptocurrencies from Gecko. And for reference, what Gecko is, like I said, it's an open API started in 2014, world's largest independent crypto data aggregator that's integrated with more than 700 crypto exchanges and lists more than 10,000 coins. So you can do things like get real-time prices, you can check out trading volumes, exchange volumes, historical data, all kinds of cool things there. But it's used for a lot of different applications as well, for crypto exchanges, wallets, data aggregators, all kinds of cool things. So we're going to use this API here. So for the custom instructions, we're going to say use the Gecko API to get accurate cryptocurrency prices. So that's pretty simple. And we're going to go down now to the actions tab. So this is where the fun happens. This is where we start actually using our API. So we're going to say create a new action. And for this one, we'll actually turn on code interpreter because we will need that here. So create a new action. And you can see, like I mentioned up here, you have an option for authentication. This is set to none because we don't need authentication for this particular public API. So we'll keep that at none. You have a couple of authentication options here, API keys or OAuth. OAuth tokens are a bit more complex to implement, but they offer more granular authorization control, and you can set those to actually expire. So if you have that, you can put your API key in here. Don't share that with anybody. There's some different configurations. OAuth, like I said, a little bit more complex, but you have that ability here, which is powerful if you're actually using some pretty interesting and cool APIs there. But we don't need that for this, so we'll keep it at none. All right, this is where you'll put in your schema data. And right now you're probably saying, I don't know how to code. Like, I can't do this. But like I said in the beginning of the course, you don't need to know how to code. We have ChatGPT 4 now. That's going to do it for us. I don't know how to code in general. I have ideas of how it works, basic principles, but I'm not a developer. But here you have the schema details. We're going to learn how to put that in using ChatGPT. And then privacy policy, you can add that in as well if you want to expose this publicly. All right, and the next thing we're going to do here is use a really cool GPT that OpenAI and ChatGPT created called Actions GPT. And I'll put the link in the comments. But this helps you create open API specifications from documentation, code samples, CURL commands, or just a description of how to use the API. This is what I'm talking about. This is where we're going to use ChatGPT 4 to help us. And you could leverage just standard ChatGPT 4, but again, this GPT is specifically fine-tuned for this specific use case of helping you with APIs. Really great example of creating a GPT for a specific use case. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to create this schema data. This actually requires code. So we're going to go over to our Actions GPT, and we're going to ask it to create the schema for a custom GPT action. The purpose of this GPT action will be to get the price from Gecko API. And here I provide the different documentation links. So here are the links to the API documentation. So if you're over here, this is introduction, getting started, the endpoint overview, those different links here. So I'm providing that detail to ChatGPT. It'll use its web browsing capabilities to leverage that to build out our schema. And I'll put all this in the comments so you can simply copy and paste this when you're building your GPT. The next thing we're going to say is also, here's an example of the JSON format and how to set it up. So we want to give it context for what the JSON format is for the schema. This isn't always necessary. You can figure it out a lot of the times, but why not help it along? So if you come over here in your actions functionality, you'll see something called examples. So there's a drop down here, and these are just simple examples. There's a JSON one, a YAML one, a blank template. We're going to do the weather JSON. So this is like some actual code. It's basically a template showing how it should be structured. So it's giving context to ChatGPT. All right, so we're going to pop that down here. All right, and that's all the detail it needs. So we're going to tell it to now create the schema for us. And you can see it's actually starting to create the code for us, which is pretty insane. Like, this is what I'm talking about with the democratization of AI, of development. Like, you no longer have to be a skilled developer. Does it help you? Yes. I think the main thing that's going to be the skill of the future is understanding the principles of how it works, the foundations, kind of like we talked about the waiter example of an API. You need to know how it works, why it works, the purpose of it, but you may not need to be into the nuts and bolts of all of it. I mean, so many times in the past when you're trying to figure out API things, you're just messing with like a comma here or a colon here, whatever it may be. And that could take hours trying to debug this. Now we have ChatGPT. So we now have our output here defining the schema, and you can simply hit copy code. All right. Now we're going to delete this example here, and we're going to pop in the schema we got. All right, and we have an error here. So what we're going to do, and again, this is a great thing about ChatGPT, is we're going to come over and say, I got the following error. Can you fix it and provide the updated schema? Okay. So instead of me having to hunt through the code and figure out what the heck that error means, I just asked ChatGPT and it's doing it for me. Do y'all see the power in this? Think of how much time this is saving. You're going to have so much innovation going on with this. There's going to be so many bright minds and other people that are actually able to build these really cool solutions that maybe didn't have the formal education or the training or spent the time to become a developer, but they have ideas. They're creative. And that's going to be the true skill set of the future, is creativity and curiosity. Those are the two critical things that you're going to need to be successful in the future. All right, so we have our updated schema. Let's copy that code. Let's simply come in here and delete this, paste it in. All right. We're still getting this error, but I do see down below we have available actions. So this is where you can actually test out the GPT. So let's see if it still works without that error actually being resolved there. It may not be an issue. Let's hit test. Okay, so you can see over in our playground, it's starting to use the action. And it'll always ask you, should you allow your GPT to talk to the API? I usually hit always allow, so you don't have to keep answering this question. All right, so it's starting the action. And it worked. All right, y'all, we got this, right? So we now have Bitcoin price of 42,239 USD and Ethereum price there as well. So we now have a GPT that is connected to an API, something that ChatGPT cannot pull. And this is powerful. This is a very simple example, but think of all the things you can start to do with this. We talked about the weather, GPS, Uber, Spotify is a cool API you can start to use. Like, the doors are going to be so open. There's going to be so much creativity and cool stuff being generated from this. I'm pumped about it. I hope you are too. I hope this course is helping you realize how cool and innovative we're going to start experiencing life and just things in general with this type of functionality. All right, so let's go back. We have our action set up. Is there anything else we need to do? We need a conversation starter. Okay, so let's do something like ask me the price of a cryptocurrency. So we got one there. And that's about it. So we're going to come over here, hit save. I'll just put only me here. I didn't have that privacy policy in place. All right, it's now ready. So now let's ask it a couple questions. Give me the price of Dogecoin. This is another cryptocurrency that exists. We already saw Bitcoin and Ethereum in the test. All right, starting the action. Always allow. And there it is. We have the price. And one other thing to note, you can come up here and hit privacy settings. And this is where you can configure if it should ask before using it or always allow. Like I said, let's make this always allow so the user doesn't always have to confirm this. Congratulations, you've now created a custom GPT integrating with an API using the actions functionality. This is huge. You now have the tools that you need to create your own custom GPTs. And I hope these 3 examples were helpful. I'm going to start adding more examples to the course as time goes on. I'll let you know when those get released. So by just having access to the course, you're going to have access to new examples as I roll them out. Your action item for this course is to make sure you've created this GPT integrated with the API if you haven't done so already as you followed along. And then I also want you to go out and find 3 really cool APIs that you could potentially integrate with. For example, there's a cool free open API that actually tells the breed of a dog. So you could think of a cool GPT where you take a picture of a dog, you upload it there, and it spits out what type of breed it is, and it could provide other images of the breeds. Just a cool, interesting example. But find 3 other APIs that you think are cool and you may want to build a GPT solution around. Like always, if you're finding value in this course, share it with your friends, your family, your colleagues, whoever, and if you can, leave a testimonial. We appreciate it.